So here are some more examples of factoring where the coefficient is not 1. In this first example, because the first coefficient is 3 and there's only one way to make a 3 with 3 and a 1, I'm going to do trial and error. So let's make this 3x times 1x, since that's the only way to make a 3. And 10 only has two ways, 1 and 10 and 2 and 5. So let's go ahead and try 2 and 5. So this will give me 15x. This will be 2x. And I need everything to be positive to multiply to a positive 10 and to add to that 17. So this works out. I got lucky right there and I got it on my first try. So that's the answer. Oops, I erased a little bit of it. Let me fix that. Okay. Alright, let's look at the next one. Okay, let's see. In this next one, because the first number 32 has so many different ways to make it, why don't we go ahead and use the grouping method. So I'm going to start with 3 times 32 is 96. It's going to be a positive 96, so two of the same sign. They both need to be negative. And let's start trying to figure out what goes into 96. Okay, so I know that 96, say, divided by 8 is 12. So 96 is 8 times 12. So that would be negative 12 and negative 8. It's going to add up to negative 20. Okay, so let's try again. 96 divided by 16 is 6. So negative 16 minus 6 is negative 22. Okay, so I can see that if I make the number larger and smaller, as you're seeing right here, the larger number gets larger, the smaller number gets smaller, the difference between them gets bigger, so I need to keep getting a little bit larger than 16 if we want this to become 28 instead of 20 or 22. Let's try again. So 96 divided by, I tried 16. I'm not sure if 18 goes in, but let's try. Nope. Okay, so 96 divided by 18 didn't work. 20 is not going to work because it ends in 0. Okay, so I'm not sure what big numbers are going to go in. So let me try something smaller than 6 then. Let me try 5. I know won't go in, so I'll try 4. 24 times. Okay, there we go. So 24 minus 4 is 28, and that's going to be the set that works. Okay, so you can kind of see I was talking along right there how I would think about what numbers to try. I don't just try every single number. I try numbers around the ones that are kind of close to where I want to be. Okay, I couldn't think of anything to try above 16, so I went for less than 6. Just kind of worked from that angle. So back to the beginning here, we're going to rewrite this as 32x squared minus 24xy, because it was 28xy originally. We're making these the xy terms, minus 4xy plus 3y squared. Now we're going to group. We're going to see what's in common here. So 32 and 24 can both be divided by 8x. When I divide them by 8, 32 divided by 8 is 4x. 24 divided by 8 is negative 3y. Okay, minus, these have a y in common. When I divide by the negative, I have 4x. 3 divided by the negative is going to be negative 3y. Taking one of the y's out, there's one left. 4x minus 3y is in common. And that'll leave us with 8x in the first term, minus y in the second. And we're done. Alright, now let's try the next one. Because there's more than one way to make 9, I could go 1 and 9 or 3 and 3, and more than one way to make a 4, I could go 1 and 4 or 2 and 2. I'm going to also do the grouping method. So 9 times 4 is 36. That's a positive number. I'm going to need it to add to a positive number, so 2 positives. So 36 is 9 and 4. That's going to add to 13. It's pretty close, but not what I need. So I want to go smaller to make this a little bit smaller. So 6 and 6, and that adds to 12. Okay, so when we do our grouping here, we're going to write this as 9p squared plus 6pq plus 6pq plus 4q squared. And group the first two. You can divide them both by 3, and they have a p in common. Divide the 3 out of the first term, you're left with 3p. Divide the 3 out of the second term, you're left with 2q. Alright, in the second two terms, you can divide them both by 2 and q. So you take your 2q out, you're left with 6 divided by 2 is 3p. And 4q squared divided by 2q is 2q. The parentheses match, which is fantastic, so I can factor that out. 3p plus 2q. And what's left is 3p plus 2q from the 3p here and the 2q here. Notice that I have 3p plus 2q and 3p plus 2q, so I can write my answer as 3p plus 2q squared. Alright. Now in the next one, there's lots of ways to make 12, lots of ways to make 8. So I probably would usually do this by grouping like I just did, but I've already done 2 examples of grouping, so I'm going to try trial and error here and see how that turns out. So I'm going to start with trying, oh, no I am not. Let me take a second back right here. I just noticed something. This problem is not an x squared problem. There's a cube right there. That breaks all the rules, except for the fact that you can take something out of everything. I got a GCF to start with. Alright, so the GCF here is going to have a k in it, because everything has a k. Also, though, you can divide all of these numbers by 4. So the GCF is going to be 4k, and let's divide that out first. Okay, so it's going to turn this into 3k squared minus 7k plus 2. Now this is a problem that would be great for trial and error now because the coefficient of the first number is one that breaks up only one way. So we're going to keep going, leave our 4k alone. We're going to try to break this into 2 parentheses. The only way to make it 3k squared is with a 3k times a 1k. Now, I know that the only way to make 2 is a 2 and a 1. I'm not sure if it's going to be 1 and 2 or 2 then 1. So let's try putting 1 and 2 and might have to change it. So let's see. My middle terms come out to be right there 6k and 1k. That could work. So 6k and 1k, I need to multiply to a positive 2, which means it to be the same sign, and it has to be negative. So negative 6 and negative 1 will be negative 7. So I put negatives in both of those spots. Let's make sure this is true. Okay, that's a negative 6 and a negative 1 to add to a negative 7k. And a negative 1 times a negative 2 is a positive 2. So that's good. Okay, so this is going to be the answer. Final answer right here. So the 4k was factored out first. That's in the coefficient right here in the front. And then the 2 parentheses we got when we broke down our trinomial with a coefficient of 3. Okay. Now let's try the next one. And in the next one, there's another coefficient to GCF here. I always need to be checking for that GCF. I always need to be looking to see if there's something I can do first. Something I can take out of all of the terms before I start breaking it down into 2 parentheses. So 20, 38, and 12 can all be divided by 2. I don't think 38 can be divided by 4. We can see what we get when we divide it by 2. 19, so correct. That cannot be divided by 4. So let's divide them all by 2. And then there's an x in all of them and a y in all of them. Okay, so if I take out the GCF of 2xy, 20 divided by 2 is 10x squared minus, I took the y out, so there's no more y there, minus 19. Took one of the x's out, there's an x left. Took the y out, so there aren't any y's. Plus 12 divided by 2 is 6. Took the x and the y, so that's the end of that one. Okay, so from here, I'm going to use the grouping method. So the grouping method says I would start by 6 times 10 is 60. It's going to be positive, so I'm going to need two negatives to multiply to a positive and to add to that negative 19. So things that go into 60 are 6 and 10. So I have negative 6 and negative 10. That'll add to negative 16. It's close, but not what I want, so let's try again. 15 and 4. Negative 15 and negative 4 multiply together to get 60, and they add to a negative 19. So what I would do next is rewrite this as 10x squared minus 15x minus 4x plus 6 group. Now don't forget about this 2xy. We're going to bring that down and put it in front of our answer, but I'm not going to use it for the time being. I'm going to use it later. So the first two terms here have 5x in common. Take that out. I'm left with 2x minus 3 minus, because the first term is negative, those have 2 in common. Take the negative 2 out, you're left with positive 2x. Divide a negative 2 out, you're left with minus 3. So this is going to factor into 2x minus 3 times 5x minus 2. And that was just this part of it, right? Just the 10x squared minus 19x plus 6. So we got to make sure we bring down the 2xy, put it in front of our final answer.